Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Teachers Talk Sports. I'm joined here by your favorite, my favorite, Mr. Brian Fenema. How are you doing today, buddy?
Everybody's favorite, apparently. I'm doing great. It is a lovely Thursday here in Portland, Oregon. The calm before the snowstorm.
Snowpocalypse 2021. Get your kale, everybody.
Ooh, people are losing their minds, my friend. And not a single drop of precipitation out my window. So.
I know, same.
Isn't that ironic? But
that's the story.
Funny story, though, real quick to get us started. I know everybody loves to have the life check-ins. The old our heat has been out for a few weeks, and we've just been making it work. It stays about 60 to 63 degrees in the house anyway, so it's fine. So our furnace has been out. And we didn't know if it was the thermostat or the furnace itself, blah, blah, blah. It's been pretty cold the past couple of days. And as I'm realizing not warm air is coming from the vents, I'm like, probably a furnace issue. So luckily, our friends at AAA Heating and Cooling, official sponsor of the Portland Trail Blazers, called them up yesterday and was like, hey, perfect timing, right? It's going to be freezing the next 3 days. It'd be really great if you could send a tech out. So nice gentleman came and fixed our furnace for us today. You know, really excited about the service and wasn't too expensive. So, hey, there's heat back at the Fenemas just in time for apparently 3 days of what is predicting a lot of snow. So we'll see. We'll see how that works out.
Great timing. Real happy to hear that for both you, Mrs. Fenema, and the pups.
The doggos, they don't like the cold. That's for sure.
Well, good, man. Yeah, I'm doing good myself. I love the snow so much, as we've covered on this show before. I really hope to be drinking a glass of nice wine, watching the Blazers against the Sixers with all of it. Yeah. Well, with Dame back anyway, and have that snow falling out my window. That'd be a great thing.
Yeah. So the Sixers, we've heard that name before, right? They've been on the schedule. Is that am I right?
Yeah, CJ Ellaby is the antidote.
That's the guy.
Is that it?
Yes. So I remember I could not run to the scoreboard app fast enough as soon as I found out Dame was out and take that hefty 76ers minus 10.5. And I was just like, I have never been more confident in my life. I feel like we are going to see an absolute bludgeoning this evening. And to the surprise and shock of everyone in town, the Portland Trail Blazers played incredible basketball. And this is with Joel Embiid scoring 31 in the first half and leaving for a second. He was gone for 25 minutes in real time, but missed about a half of a quarter, full quarter. I mean, quite a bit. He got hurt in the first 3 minutes of the first quarter, came back and scored 31 in the first half. And this is one of those times where everyone in Blazers land is like, how was he getting 31 points in the first half after going out, which I thought it looked like he blew his knee out. It was one of those non-contact things. Just landed kind of funny, really scary because, I've always told you how I feel about Joel. I love his game, and it was really hard. I was like, send out a couple texts, put it in the group chat too. I was like, I don't think Joel's coming back. Came back, played really well. Man, tied at halftime, and then the Blazers blew it open, and it was just like the weirdest thing. Everyone in Blazers Nation was excited, and you and Gavin in particular were more excited about that than pretty much anything than apparently the Dame shots. I know That's an exaggeration.
No, I meant that. That Dame, I was pissed in that Dame shot game. What are we doing? That's what it takes to beat the Bulls. It was so much more relieving and fun, that Sixers game.
And it was funny because at the moment, in the moment, I'm being cranky Brian. I'm like, this is not as fun. I don't know what you guys are talking about. But then you go to Twitter and you go to everything afterwards, and everyone's just like, this was incredible. But no one could really put their finger on what happened. And I think that we've talked about it before with you're going to get teams, professional players are still in this league. Believe it or not, this is still a professional league, and there's still professionals on the other team. And they hear it, and I'm sure that the Blazers went into it thinking that everybody around the league thinks that we're just going to get our butts pushed in. And they played really, really well, and they played team ball, and the ball movement was incredible. But then it starts to open up that window, see, Terry can coach, can't he? So It was really weird, and I still can't exactly put my finger on it because then they turn around 2 days later and play terribly against the Knicks.
Right.
Help me out. Help me
Yeah.
understand what I missed last week.
Well, I will say that you're right in the sense that that was the best feeling game by far of the year, where everybody on every online outlet was finally like, "Oh, we're all on the same side." Like every single game, it's like the Terry people versus the Terry haters, the Melo people versus the Melo haters. This team, the fans of this team are just so against each other this year. It's so weird. So finally having a game where just like, hey, this is all the young guys. Like we're all in this together. I wonder, like, as I'm saying this, I wonder how much of the pandemic has to do with this and my understanding of it. Because like if we're all at the Moda together, we're not like having nuanced discussions usually with the guy that we don't know next to us about Terry Stotts' ability to rotate his players. It's just like, yeah, we got it, you know?
Yeah.
So now that we're all like on our phones for every game and we're like constantly talking to people we don't know but who love the same team as us
and live reacting, so
right.
not really giving any time to it, just reacting as it's happening. Sure.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just like we're just like so aware, and we do have a couple. Well, Melo obviously is a very polarizing player, and I've noticed I'm someone these days who I actually am so into the NBA that I'll go into other teams' Twitters and Reddit pages.
Okay, I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, to get a feel for it. And like, for example, the Wizards Reddit is like the Blazers Reddit times 12. Like the Russ fans are so much more annoying than the Melo fans, and the Wizards fans hate those people. Like hate those people.
I mean, hey, I hate them too.
Yeah, so like I think it's just a phenomenon where you have these days it's a growing thing where you have team fans and then you have player fans. And the player fans will travel with the player into the team's internet pages, and they just fight like crazy. But anyways, that's a really interesting phenomenon. That's something that maybe we could dive deeper into another time. But as far as that, Nick, I mean, so for those of you that don't know, which was all of you, I was watching that game in the morning time of my Saturday, and I was just absolutely stewing. I was so mad.
You were a cranky boy. You sent a couple of cranky boy texts.
Why am I sitting here on my Saturday morning caring so much about the Blazers versus the Knicks? But that's where my life is at, y'all. And Brian gives me a call, and I just was not there for it. I was so cranky, and I actually had to apologize afterwards. But by the end of it, I felt better. But yeah, it's like we had a chance to go 4-2 on the roadie, and instead we just dropped it to the Knicks and just looked totally dead. Yeah, I don't know. The team is weird. It's I think the high expectations in the preseason also has all of us fans sort of in a frenzy.
Yep.
And all the injuries are tough, but even with a healthy roster, I think it's still just a flawed roster. Covington, he's starting to find his shot a little bit, but he needs to get a little bit more consistent there, which maybe that's just not who he is. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, so I think you're onto something with that. I think that we're all a little bit, speaking out a little bit more. I was going to ask you, I was like, well, what do you think? You got to think of other teams that are kind of Jekyll and Hyde, like the Nets. Nets Twitter's probably insane. So I think you might be onto something. I think we are spending more time on message boards and Twitter and Instagram and perusing the comments and stuff like that. So maybe that's more of it, is that we're and we've always had that thing about text and tone and not understanding. But you're also right about there's a lot of people who just stay with their guy. It seems like every person that I get into an argument about Carmelo with on the internet, their picture is probably a Yankees hat. Like there's at least 3 or 4 that I've had a conversation with where y'all got to leave Melo alone. Y'all, I'm like, okay, I will not leave him alone because it doesn't matter what's going on. I'm going to hate whatever he's doing. I mean, even yesterday or 2 days ago, and you said it, oh, let him cook, Brian, let him cook, stop being cranky. Guess what? Even when he's making it, still looks like something that makes my eyes want to bleed. So that's going to be it. But anytime I bring that to the internet, I'm usually fighting somebody who is wearing a Yankees hat or something like that. So I think you're onto something with that as well, as these people stick on to their players more than their teams. And I think the Blazers have that. But you're right. Melo is an incredibly polarizing guy. And so he brings that kind of aspect to it. I think that Dame doesn't have that, because Dame is so universally beloved, not only by people in this city, but by other people around the league and respected. So this is like one of the first times that I've seen it where I've dug this deep to see people going back and forth and such huge differences in opinions. And no opinion is more glaring when it comes to the Portland Trail Blazers than Carmelo Anthony and then Terry Stotts. And those are the things that people are talking about. And it seems like those are the only things that people are talking about. I think there's a lot that needs to be said about the fact that Damian Lillard is third amongst guards for All-Star voting. And I know that's a flawed system, but when you compare Dame and Steph right next to each other, they're the same. It's incredible how similar their numbers are. Granted, Steph has like almost 30 more made threes than Dame, but their points per game are less than a half point separation. They're similar. One doesn't have I want to punch you in the face. So that's important that Dame has that. But it's interesting. But the conversation in this city since the jump, and maybe like you were alluding to, maybe the expectations played a big part of this. But the Terry popularity thing has never really been. I mean, maybe it's just that I only was talking to people in the building or talking to people at a bar or something. But I've never heard this much noise about the coach. For the last couple of years, I felt like Neil O'Shea was getting a lot of the grief, the Blazers general manager, and now it's just I don't hear anyone bringing up anything about O'Shea unless it's something about maybe like Robert and Derek Jones not working out the way that we envisioned, which it's too young in the season. So it's interesting though. And I can't really, I'm not firmly on the fence, drawing my line in the sand, saying, listen, Terry is flawless. He's the perfect coach. He's the guy. I just want everyone to be very, very careful about doing something drastic. Do changes maybe need to be made in the offseason? Possibly. But there's no good that can come from firing Terry right now. And I also want to look forward and say, be very, very careful about getting rid of someone who's brought a lot of fundamental success. This reminds me a lot of a guy who I was very fond of and unfortunately passed away this week, Marty Schottenheimer. He got fired after he was 14-2 with the Chargers. 14-2 got fired. The Chargers have been to the playoffs one time since they fired him. So I think they need to be very, very careful about it because, yes, there are some flaws in what Terry is doing lineup-wise, approach-wise, defensive schematic-wise. Yes, there are warts there. But I think we need to be very, very careful about who they would use to replace him because great coaching does not just grow on trees. And it's not like the Blazers have the nostalgia to be like, you know what? We're going to move on from Terry, but we're going to bring in the best college coach that we can. They're not getting those guys. It's unfortunate. A lot of these guys who have established themselves in the NCAA are most likely they're not getting Mark Few from Gonzaga. They're not getting Scott Drew from Baylor. They're not getting, don't even bring up the Blue Bloods, let alone them as well. So it's tough. It really is. Dave Vanderpool's come up, Earl Watson's come up, and I understand that they have some ties there, but I think we just need to be abundantly careful before we make a huge franchise-changing decision, especially when it comes to a guy that is universally beloved inside of that locker room. And I think maybe that's why I put too much emphasis on keeping Terry. So I know that there's other points and there's other angles, and I know you in particular have one, but let's just talk it out.
Yeah, so I think just going back a little bit, you're talking about Neil O'Shea, and I think that the spotlight was on him because people were saying forever, why do we continue to build a flawed roster around Dame and CJ? Why don't you go get those wings that can play defense and shoot? And so this offseason, Neil did that. And so in doing that, it sort of shifts his responsibility to Terry because it's like, all right, I did my thing. We didn't go get Kawhi, but obviously that's not an option. So we went out there and got Robert Covington, who was the most sought after player at last year's trade deadline by good teams, and Derek Jones Jr., who you would hope would be a riser in terms of a 3-and-D wing. And then, so Terry comes out here, and we have expectations of being a top team. Like we were hoping to be the Utah Jazz of this year. Maybe not the first seed, but we were hoping to be like that team that's been consistent, that was taking a jump like the Utah Jazz have. And that hasn't happened. And some of that is because of injury. But the truth is, before we got injured, we were also just as flawed, it felt like. Mm-hmm. And so I also agree with you in terms of, like, I grew up watching the Sacramento Kings. They had Rick Adelman. Similar situation. Blazers have much more history, and the Blazers are a better franchise all around. But, the Kings had Rick Adelman, who's a similar level of coach to Terry Stotts, I would say. Like an upper mid-level coach that will win a lot of games for you. Hasn't won a championship, but, could in the right situation. You fire Rick Adelman, they haven't been to the playoffs since. Like, I was a fucking child when that happened. Like, and sometimes you just don't recover, and then it's like, okay, now we go get Eric Musselman, and he lasts half a year, and then you go get, and it's just like all of a sudden you're spinning gears, and then Dame's like, wait, that was my guy. You fired my guy. Like, maybe I'm gonna get a wandering eye, and it's just like you just got to be real careful about that. That aside, if we are going to critique Terry a bit, you could point to the defense and say, why is it that this defense is so bad after going and getting those pieces? Mm-hmm. I have a response, but why do you give Terry some blame for the fact that our defense is the second or third worst defense in the league after getting some pieces?
I mean, so obviously, like, some of this needs to fall back on coaching, and it's not just Terry saying every once in a while we'll throw a little zone. That's not enough. So, like, I realize that it's not just our guys. I will say that for a long time the talking point was the Blazers are bad defensively because of their guards, their smaller guards who can't defend. Well, guess what? CJ got hurt, and they insert a bigger, more physical guard, and they're still just as bad on defense. So I think that goes into it, and that needs to be talked about as well. It wasn't just personnel, so it could be schematics. And like I said, throwing out a zone once a quarter, twice a quarter isn't enough to kind of cover those warts. I just don't know. And part of it is you just look at box score to box score, and there's a couple of games where it's just, you can tell the Blazers are going to either win or lose because they're either hitting and the other team isn't threes, or vice versa. You could tell they were going to beat the Sixers. You could tell they were going to beat the Magic because they couldn't hit threes. I knew right away that the Knicks were going to beat the Blazers because they were hitting threes. And it is so prevalent in today's NBA that you have to be able to make threes. But you got to defend that three. And I just don't know what it is defensively that they're just continuing to give up open shots. And some of them are those shots where it's just like, go ahead. I'm okay with losing when Kevin Knox is pulling up, or when Julius Randle is pulling up, or when Zach LaVine is pulling up. When we're getting beat by guys like that, it's like, that's fine. But these guys that I'm naming are sinking buckets against the Blazers, and you're just like wanting to pull your hair out. You're like, I don't understand it. These guys are not historical shooters, but it just seems like they can't miss. But there's times where the Blazers are like that as well, where they're just cooking and the threes are falling. And if the threes are falling for one team and not for the other, you don't have to do much more depth into looking into it. It usually turns into a loss. But going back to your point about the defense, yes, Terry has to take some of it. He's the one who's hired his assistants, and he's the one who's brought in people around him to help coach him up. And I think that has been one good comment that I've heard from Blazers Twitter is, why don't they just bring in an extra body, someone who can do defensive analysis and things like that? Maybe that's a great start, but I can't quite figure out. And all I can think of is it is a mix. It's coaching, it's schematic, it's personnel. And I don't want to say it's effort, but defense is a lot of it is effort. So it's really hard, and it's hard to replicate some of that stuff, and it's hard to have that consistency and effort when you're playing in empty arenas. And I know I've said that 100 times, but just like watching the Jazz a couple days ago, they had 2,600 people in there, and you could feel it. I'm like, this is different. You don't have to bring all that energy. And I'm kind of getting off on a tangent here. But it's hard. It really is. In today's NBA, it's hard to carry that energy, and defense is based on determination of making stops and being in the right place and making sure your rotations are correct. And I'm just not seeing that on any sort of consistent level. I mean, everyone wants to say the Nets are a historically bad defensive team. The Blazers aren't that far behind them as far as how many points they're giving up per 100. So it's a mixture of all of the things, but I don't think that there's just one answer. And that's what's leaving everybody with just kind of like I don't know. I don't know where we are.
So when you're talking about the 3-point shot, I think that the biggest question that I have, and I think that a lot of people on the internet have, is why is it that the Blazers are consistently leaving wide open threes? Like Julius Randle, if he's pulling up off the dribble, hitting a three, fine. But
which he was.
Yeah, then that's fine. You live, you die with that, whatever.
Yeah.
But when they are just doing pass, wide open three, and Julius Randle shooting a wide open three, I don't want that. And pass,
and there was plenty of that
wide
too.
Open three, or quick drive, dish, wide open three, and it's just like 1 or 2 basketball moves away almost every possession. It feels like that's when it becomes, to me, it's like, what's going on here? And they've asked the players about it. They've asked Dame about it, and they say because of their overly aggressive defensive style this year that they just need to all trust each other, and so they're gonna be pushing up. They're gonna be a little bit over aggressive, and that means that the next guy behind them needs to cover. But at a certain point, when you've watched 23 games or whatever, and in pretty much every one of those games, there's multiple defensive breakdowns that it feels like are not happening for the better teams in the league. It does start to be like, why? And personally, I do think that part of it is because of a lack of practice time. We're trying to put in a new defense, and the training camp got cut short, which was already going to be a short training camp. They haven't had a lot of time to practice. I do think that you give a little bit of a break to the guy there. Also, just a quick little aside, people bring up David Vanterpool, who I love. Him and Dame love each other. Super handsome African-American guy. His defense that he's coaching right now is worse than the Blazers. So,
but no, not a lot of people are going to bring that up. But
yeah, so we were better when he was here at defense, but also the defense he's currently coaching sucks. So maybe there's more to it than just coaching. But anyways, back to Terry. The main thing that bothers me, and I see people on the internet talking about it too, but it really bothers me, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, is the Dame high trap. So what I've noticed is they trap Dame high, and Dame passes the ball to the corner, and then that guy will hold the ball and then let Dame come back and get it. Usually this is what happens. And then basically the same thing just resets. It's just now we have 12 seconds, and then they'll try to trap him again, and then we get it almost never feels like we take advantage of the fact that we now have a 4-on-3 half-court break. And when you were watching the Knicks game, we tried that for a second. We doubled Emmanuel quickly, a rookie taken in the 20s high, and immediately pass, dunk.
3 or dunk.
Pass, 3.
Yep.
And it was like, wait, why is a rookie? And then, so I want to know your thoughts on that. And then also my other thought that I haven't seen anywhere is why doesn't like Dame is a very smart man who is an elite basketball player. Why, he has some say in what's happening here too. Obviously, he knows 20 trillion times what I know, and I'm not trying to say anything other than that. But I just wonder, why is it that Dame chooses to support this style? Why don't they just go? So, what do you think about that?
So, I think that there's a big missing piece of that, which kind of broke, not broke it open, but helped play a huge role in it, and you saw it a lot in the playoffs last year in the bubble, was Yusuf's ability to be that playmaker when he touches it, when they would trap Dame at the top. Usually Dame would give it to Yusuf in between the free throw line and the three-point line, and then it came to him to either turn and dribble, make a pass, or even he was doing like finger rolls from one step inside of the free throw line too. So asking Ennis to do that is completely different, because you can tell when Ennis gets it in that same spot, he's usually just kind of like, where's the help coming from? What do I do? How can I get rid of this as fast as possible? The secondary part, as snow starts to fall in Portland, Oregon, the secondary part is, you're right, it's so frustrating. And it's funny, because for those of you who don't know, I've now given Johnny the nickname the Silver Liner, because he knows how to find the silver lining out of even when I'm the crankiest about Blazers basketball. This is what broke the silver liner on Saturday. He was so frustrated because of that trap, pass, dribble, handoff. Because you're right, that's all it is. All they're doing is milking time off the clock, and then you're rushing everything. And then you see the same thing happen, and you brought it up about Emmanuel Quickley and like, why are we doing that to a rookie? Although in the first game, Quickley diced up the Blazers. So like, I can see
Quickley's nice. My critique is not on him. It's just like, why can a rookie take advantage
make these decisions?
Yeah,
sure. And another frustrating thing is like, why does it look so painful? Why does it look easy to make the extra pass and get a dunk or get an open three, like you said, for the New York Knicks versus the Blazers? And I don't know. Does it really come down to coaching? Tom Thibodeau was a defensive-minded head coach, and yes, they're playing pretty good defense. But when other teams, I mean, everybody throws it at us. They throw that high trap on Dame because they don't want to get beat by him. They know he's the one person on the floor who can really embarrass them. The answer isn't just Yusuf. It isn't. Because if that's the answer, we're kind of screwed going forward. But it does need to be someone in that center area in between those points where I'm telling you, between the free throw line and the three-point line, that can make a decision but also can be a threat right away. And Zach had a little bit of that. Yusuf has a ton of it. And so I know we're talking about guys that we're praying to get back soon and talking about what things could have looked like, but it's really hard. I know that I can't quite wrap my brain about where I am currently about what we need to get over this hump, to get us to the beginning of March, to get us through these next 12 scheduled games before we can get some of our help back. But I don't know. It's frustrating to watch, because I feel like these are things that you and I could do in the gym together if you and I are just playing and we're like, okay, they keep doing the same thing to the same guy. Let's figure it out. Especially when you got 5 or 6 other guys out there who are supposed to be helping as coaches as well. It's tough. It really is. But I think that we're somewhere in between in that range, is where it's like, what are we doing with personnel, decision-making, play calling? Because it doesn't seem like there's a ton of new play calls going in. It just seems like that maybe this is why the players like Terry so much. He lets them do their thing. He doesn't run a lot of base sets where he's calling it out right away. Usually he indicates when a double's coming. Usually, you'll hear him whistling. He's also very verbal with the shot clock, which is great. But I think maybe that's part of it as well, is he lets his guys do his thing. And sometimes it can be infuriating to watch, but it's tough. We're somewhere in that range where it's like we're a piece away, and we need a little bit of a schematic change. And like you said, it's going to continue to take time to get this new scheme of defense in. And just tossing a 2-3 zone every once in a while isn't what's going to fix this problem.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, it sounds like we're kind of in agreement then that like Stotts is imperfect.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I am not saying that he's the only option for this team going forward.
Right.
I'm just saying let's be very careful. And personally, but personally, I love him. And like, I think people understand that. So
I do too. Did you ever follow the Rare Terrys thing? Are you aware of the Rare Terrys?
No, I don't know what that is.
Oh, well, I guess, yeah, it's a Reddit thing. But basically there is an entire website subreddit page dedicated to pictures of Terry Stotts doing funny things. Like he was just the message of the story being like he was absolutely revered. Like people loved him. Like they're just like pictures of him like looking cool, pictures of him looking funny. Like he was just revered. It felt like even last year, definitely 2 years ago, and now it's just like wow. Like, and I do think a lot of it is the expectations mixed with the lackluster performances.
I think you're right, because we turn the clock back 1 year ago, maybe a little longer. Yeah. I felt like he was so beloved in our city.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I know it's easy to change your Twitter handle to add fire Terry Stotts and and the current record of the Blazers. Like, I know that's not hard to do, but I'm seeing a lot of it. And I'm just like, I'm running out of the energy to defend him, but I'm going to defend him. But it's just like, it's hard because I feel like I'm in such the minority now.
Right.
And we talk about it again in 4 months, then I might be a little bit closer to being okay with that decision making. Yeah. But there's no way on earth you're ever going to convince me that firing Terry in season is ever going to do anything but throw a blowtorch on that locker room. So,
right.
I don't know.
I mean, I think it's important to mention that the Blazers are the 5th seed right now. Like, as we sit here today, they are in the 5th seed, and they've been missing on some games 5 starters. Like, and they won that game, by the way. But also, they've CJ was, by advanced stats, our best player to start the year.
Yeah.
He's been gone. Nurk obviously is the anchor of the defense, and he wasn't playing great, but Covington's missed time. There's just been through all these injuries, the Blazers are in the 5th spot. If the Suns had lost that game, which they should have lost last night, they'd be in the 4th spot. Sure, they're just a couple of losses away from much lower than that, but yeah, all things considered, Terry has not done a horrible job all around, and I don't know. I think that's important. But then, on the other side of things, change can be exciting. And imagine if Nick Nurse has another amazing ace on his staff, and it's like, oh, okay, like, wow. So now all of a sudden we got Dame moving off ball, a la Steph Curry, and like, oh, like our defenders know where to be consistently. Like, it's easy to let yourself dream, but the other side of that coin is like, maybe you go out and you sign George Karl, and now everybody on the team hates everybody. And like, it's not always going to be the genius with all the great plans. So just you got to be careful.
The Nick Nurses of the world they are not the rule. They are the exception. It's tough. Yes, I'm sure there's some great assistants out there who are ready to make the leap. I don't know who they are, though. I really don't. We'll see. We'll see what happens going forward. There's a lot of stuff, but I really
just off the top of my head, that'd be dope. Portland would be a great spot for the first female head coach.
And Borrega, this is embarrassing because this guy's from Albuquerque. He was a part of the system. He's clearly looks like he's got it handled too. So, there are guys out there. The Pacers' new head coach, I'm not even gonna try with his name. So
yeah, he's the guy. He's the Nick Nurse's guy.
Yeah, and so there are guys, but the long thing that's always been said in the NFL, and gals, yes. But the long thing that's been said about the NFL is like proximity to greatness does not assure greatness. Sure. That's always the thing about the Belichick disciples, although they have had a really good run on them lately. So proximity to greatness doesn't necessarily ensure. And just, I like Becky. I guarantee she can coach, and I know she knows how to handle her business because everyone respects her. And what better place for her to get a job, because the people in here would love her and embrace her. So
absolutely.
Yes, but I think that it's one of those things where we would know nothing. No one would really know what to expect with that. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the records that are seemingly being broken from basically each time the Blazers take the floor? It seems like we got a guy in Carmelo Anthony who's just shooting up, and I thought it was kind of funny to hear him say, "Oh, I'm not paying attention." When I
actually laughed out loud. It's like, oh, sure, bro. You don't care about your legacy, right?
I'm so glad you laughed like that because we're literally talking about a guy who, as loud as he ever has, with the "get the fuck out of here, I got this shit" on a rebound
Right.
because he passed someone on a rebounding category. You're trying to say that guy doesn't know who he's passing with the
Yeah.
points?
Yeah.
It is
No,
funny.
so here's the thing with Carmelo. The guys on the Blazers outsiders, Danny and Joe, who I've been tweeting at, they respond to a lot of tweets, which I do appreciate.
We love that.
Um, yeah, but they were having a debate about Melo, and I thought Danny made a point that really resonated with me, which was, well, he's a Melo hater. He's like definitely on your corner in that way. But his point was really good in my opinion, which was that the Blazers are not the Kings. The Blazers are not the Charlotte Bobcats. Like, we're a franchise with real history and real tradition, and we are a respectable franchise. And so the fact that we're elevating some dude that did all this stuff somewhere else, we're elevating him to a story of like, oh my God, this legend is breaking records for the Blazers, is a little bit beneath us. And personally, that point resonated with me where I was like, you're right. Like, we're a legitimate, respectable franchise. Like, why are we celebrating so much that this outsider's coming in here, taking minutes from guys that deserve them more and like passing guys on the list, which, like, good for him. He's obviously had a much more successful career than I have. Great. That's amazing. But like, I just thought that the point was a good one, and I definitely agreed with it.
Okay, so if we're going this far for Carmelo climbing these scoring lists and passing these nickname guys, as Jordan Kent said, he's getting into that nickname territory with Hakeem the Dream, a bunch of guys that he's passing.
The human highlight reel, the big fundamental.
Fundamental. Yeah. So he's passing guys that are in that nickname category. So he's climbing it, and we're spending this much time and energy being excited about it. Are we going to throw a parade every time Dame passes somebody here in a few years? Because we are certainly giving him his shine. And you could tell in that game against the Magic that Terry was just like, you guys don't need to look to the sidelines. Let Melo do his thing, which is always when I want to punch myself in the face the most, when Melo's doing Melo stuff. But it's, it is, that's a really good point. And I was actually going to ask you because, there's the set of people that I follow as well. And one person I follow pretty closely is also not a Melo hater by any means. I think that I'm somewhere in that like fringe hater. Like, I don't hate him as a human. I think he seems to be a very cool guy. Okay.
He really does.
I hate his game, just so
I
that we're
love
clear.
To have a glass of wine with Carmelo Anthony, for
sure. Not my first choice on the team, but yes, you're right.
Yeah.
But I just, I think it's cool that I'm not the only person who's out there who's saying it's tough. And you said it from the get-go. And I don't know if this was a phrase you heard, but why do we have to be the stewards of his legacy?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, he has a legacy, but it was outside of a Blazers uniform. And it's not winning basketball. And people look at me like I'm an idiot when I say that. He's never won at any level besides when he was 19 years old. He's been out of the first round of the playoffs once, I believe. If not once, it's twice tops. So let's not say that he's just some winning basketball player. He's a scorer and a damn good one. But why are we the ones who have to celebrate every time he passes somebody on the list and doesn't necessarily contribute to team basketball? Because if you think that he's contributing to team basketball, he wouldn't have the third lowest plus minus on the team. And he's only 1 point lower than the second worst. So that we're clear.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think we're definitely aligned here. It's just like Melo. When he's out there, when he's playing the four and he's shooting threes in the rhythm of the offense, I love him actually.
Me too. Yes.
He's like a real threat out there. He's a better shooter than most of our guys that play that position. So
for sure,
when he's doing that, I'm like all for it. But
it's the back to the basketball.
Oh my God. It's
the
like
insistent on taking the ball up. Yes.
There was a time in the last game, there was 2 possessions, I think maybe 2 out of 3 possessions, where one of them was Ant forcing it to him, turnover. And then 2 possessions later, someone else tried to force it to him, turnover. I was just like,
It was
oh
Gary.
my
It was Gary.
God, can we not? But yeah, that's the thing. It's like Blazers fans, when we get the amazing opportunity to root against Russell Westbrook, and every time that idiot hucks up a shot outside of 2 feet, and you just celebrate. When it goes in, you celebrate more because that means he'll do it again.
Yeah.
That's what it's like rooting against Melo. It's like, oh, Melo wants to cook in the mid-range? Cool. Best case scenario, he's going to get 4 points on 3 shots. Do not care.
We'll put a bow on this, but what more do we need to say than getting blown out in Milwaukee? This was in probably early second quarter. He comes up, he brings the ball up, sees he's one-on-one with Giannis.
Exactly.
And says, hell yeah. This is my shit right here. This is the matchup I've been waiting my whole life for. Give me the back-to-back defensive player of the year. Give it two-time MVP. Give it to me. Give it to me. He wasn't back-to-back defensive player of the year, but he was 2-time MVP, and he has won a defensive player of the year in that span. Right. Spoiler, it's not a great look for Melo.
It didn't work out.
Go after that man. Turns out it was a brick. So you sent me a text in that moment. And I think at that time, I was standing up and walking away from my television because I was just like, I can't do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. Okay, well, hey, we got 12 games. We got 12 games left on the schedule. And I know that sounds weird. People go, well, what do I say? Like, as you informed me, they didn't do the entire second half of the season. They planned on a break for the All-Star break. That apparently looks like it's going to be a game, which a lot of people are pushing back on. And I will say, if LeBron says no, the league will most likely say no. So we'll see how that works. But 12 games ahead, and 6 of them, there's still a lot of road games on this, which is unfortunate. But there's winnable games here. There really are. And if we could get to that break, I think CJ is coming back most likely after that break. So around this second week of March, he's due this weekend, I believe, for his checkup. He says he's in a walking boot. He says he's moving around, but I don't want to rush it at all. I think he should probably take the next 3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah, there's no
Yusuf might be 3 to 4 weeks out, maybe about 5. The wrist is really weird. Like I said, it can grow. I mean, it'll come back and he'll feel somewhat normal, but it's going to take another month for him to feel the strength, especially like if he's lifting, which I'm not sure how much they're doing anyway. But there's some W's on this schedule, but there's also some tough ones where we'll kind of gauge where the Blazers are. And it starts tonight. Like if you think that the Sixers aren't going to be upset about what happened, they're going to come in here and I think they're going to be upset. So that's going to be a tough game. Dallas is on the schedule. Phoenix is on the schedule. Golden State's on the schedule again. The worst of the 2 LA teams, the Lakers, is on the schedule again.
Yeah. It's tough, but we beat the Lakers, we beat the Sixers with nobody. And then we lose to the Bulls, and we've lost to the Knicks, and lost to you never know what with this damn team, man. You never know. I do fully expect, though. I expect the Sixers to be up by at least 10 points at the end of the first quarter. I think they're going to come out and be like, man, these guys, they got Ben Simmons back. Like I have low expectations for tonight, but I hope I'm wrong, of course.
Well, with that, I mean, I think I'm gonna put that race to 12 down now then, since you're so confident. I mean, I'm confident, and if you're confident, we might as well see what these odds are. But yeah, I think that I'm not necessarily going to say that the outcome is going to be totally different. I think the Blazers have it in them to beat them again, maybe not by 15 to 20, but it could happen, but we'll see. I think we're going to see a little bit different of a focus. Like you said, Simmons didn't play the first game, which I'm like, man, whatever. I'm not sure, but we'll see. We'll see. I mean, it's exciting time still, and I'm still having fun watching the Portland Trailblazers. I was starting to get into like a mood where it's like, I didn't want to watch these hurt guys, but it's been fun. It really has. And you said watching CJ was like so much fun. It was better than watching like vintage Dame, and I'm like, let's pull it back there. But really watching him, he's got confidence and he's got some spring in his game. I was actually stunned by that. Because he looks like a goober. He's like, you're like, that he does not throw it down. He does not.
Yeah, for sure. No, listen, just to be clear, what I was saying was rooting for young, unproven guys is as fun for me. It's even more rewarding in some ways than rooting for established stars. Obviously, I would much rather watch Dame every night than CJ Ellaby, but the joy I get from having Ellaby be, perform well, it feels more like a little more wholesome. Like Dame, he's gonna do that whether I care or not. Ellaby, it kind of feels like, oh, like Ellaby, like you're my guy, man. Like, good job, buddy.
Yeah,
you know.
for those of you who are wondering, Johnny sent that in the group text, and I said, "No, you don't. You just said that just to say it."
Right? He's like, you don't.
This guy, like he smoked crack or something, and someone stole his phone. I was like, you do not mean that. And I was just like, he kept
you were mad.
And I was being a cranky boy after that. But you know, I got it the second half. Well, I mean, we still have fun stuff. We still have fun stuff to look forward to.
Next time, I think we got to get into like what we're seeing with our young guys and talk a little bit about what they've been doing in their minutes and where they might go from here, and continue checking in on where the Blazers are and where they're going. I like talking these storylines, talking Terry, and I think that we can continue with that going forward.
Sure. Without like trying to figure it out right now, I think that there's a lot to be said about Gary. There's a lot to be said about Anthony. There's a lot that can be said about Rodney. So we'll start making our way towards this and, start honing in on guys and watching them a little bit more carefully. We're just going to have to do a little bit more homework on it, but it's going to be good. And if y'all have anything else that you want us to dive into, I think The Bachelor's over, so we can't really get into that. But, any other intriguing storylines that you want to be brought up on Teachers Talk Sports. I know the group me are all Suns fans, so maybe we can talk a little bit of scorched earth after the Blazers beat them up. So we'll see. We'll see about that. But it's still fun to root for this team, and I think we'll start making our way as more and more arenas are starting to open up. I've got a razor eye on it.
Dude, get tickets for that first game. We're going together.
I don't care what it costs. I don't care what the repercussions are.
We're going.
I mean, I know we say that, and we can also say that because we will feel a little bit more comfortable about
we're lucky
going into public because we've gotten the precautionary measure injected into us in order to try and prevent from it. So if that were not a possibility, we're going. So I look forward to it. And then we'll see if we get into any fist fights over Terry, I guess. Maybe things have changed that much.
I need to get myself a Terry Stotts jersey just to stir it up.
I got to get the TV Time Champion sign all ready for everything. We got to make a Teachers Talk Sports sign. I mean, there's no stopping us from the halftime show. And I know the public misses this face during halftime. I know
Absolutely.
it. I know it. I was going through the old memories a couple days ago. I was like, whoa, it's been so long. Well, hey man, this is always fun. I think that you're onto something with the deep dive. I think next week we can start looking at some of those young guys and see what we're looking forward to. It was a scary proposition, you and I throwing out numbers about Gary, who bet on himself and what he could potentially be seeing as far as an annual salary next year. So we'll start talking about things like that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I think we'll start there and we'll see how things go. And if people love it, we'll keep going and we'll keep diving into that. But share us your opinions, your thoughts, give us your feedback, guys. I mean, we're doing this for y'all. I mean, obviously Johnny and I do this because we love talking about the Blazers together, but we're doing it for y'all. So keep the information coming, keep the feedback. Those of you who are nice enough to reach out, we really, really appreciate that. I'm sure you're getting feedback via text and group messages as well. We appreciate y'all. Thank you for listening. This is fun for us to do. We're still going to continue to do it. It's not burdening you financially yet too hard, right, Johnny? You're okay with?
I'm still doing okay.
Okay. Had to check in because I can help out. Spotify ain't free, y'all. Okay, it's not. It's just not free. So look for us on YouTube. Look for us on Spotify, Google, iTunes, wherever you take it. Subscribe. That way you can know when we're dropping new stuff. But this will be out here in probably a couple hours. So I'm looking forward to it. Blazers tonight. We'll see. And hopefully we can make some money, buddy.
Sounds good, buddy. All right. Take care. Brother. Enjoy the snow.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to go make a snow angel right now because there's, it's not sticking. All right, brother. We'll talk with you soon.
All right. Later.
Later.